We're going to be discussing Lesson 9 of our Pearson book and how to use transitions in our PowerPoint presentation. In this chapter, we're going to be dealing with adding transition to slides. We're going to show you how to add sounds to those transitions. We're going to apply the transition settings to all of our slides. We're then going to use transition effects. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a review item, and that is adding slide numbers to our slideshow. Alright, we will need to get our file open for Lesson 9. To do that, we're going to use our book, and we're going to turn to page 898. So going to my page numbers, I'm going to type in 898. Scroll to the bottom of that page, and there you will find the PowerPoint file that we need to open. I'm going to click on the file, enable the editing. At this point, we need to save this file to our Documents folder. And place the file into a folder with today's date. Alright, the goal here is we want to add what are called transitions to our slides. The transition is what happens as we go from one slide to the next. Looking at slide 1, if I start my slideshow right now, it shows a slide. And if I either click my mouse or press on the right arrow key of my keyboard, I'll move to the next slide, but there's really no transition. It's simply the old slide goes away and the new slide replaces it. Pressing the Escape key, I want to go back to slide 1 and we want to change this. We would like to add a special effect called a transition going from one slide to the next. The first transition that we wish to use is a transition called Reveal. So here I am on slide 1. I'm going to use the Reveal transition, and you will see a preview of it happening to the slide. Slide 2, we're going to use a transition called Fade. So looking at my transitions, I click Fade for slide number 2. Now that I have two transitions in place, let's take a look at it. I'm going to go to slide 1. I'm going to start my slideshow and I will see the first transition. I then click the left mouse button, or you can press the right arrow key on the keyboard, and that will then fade into the next transition, into the next slide. Pressing the Escape key to close out. Going to slide number 3. Here we wish to use a transition called Flash. Notice that Flash is not visible on the Transitions ribbon. We click the drop down, and now we will see several other transitions that we can use. We're going to use the Flash transition for slide 3. Moving to slide 4, we're going to use a transition called Ripple. A lot of students like this Ripple transition. We're going to click the drop down arrow. We're going to click on the Ripple transition. And going to slide number 5, we're going to use a transition called Random Bars. That probably is visible without clicking the drop down arrow. And finally, slide 6, we're going to use a transition called Fly Through. Using the drop down, under Dynamic Content, we're going to use the Fly Through transition. All right, let's view this presentation. I go to slide 1. I click my slideshow button to start the show. I can now move through my presentation. And when we get to the end, we press escape. All right, now we wish to add some sound effects to our transitions. So let's go to slide 1 again, and we are going to add a drum roll sound effect. So where it says sound, we come down to drum roll. You can set the duration. We will leave it as is. Okay, and now we're going to begin our presentation. And there you hear the drum roll and the transition taking place. I'm going to press the escape key. Now, if we wish to apply this setting to all the slides, we can use the apply to all. Now do be careful. When you use this apply to all, not only is it going to copy the drum roll to every transition, but it's also going to copy the transition of reveal to every slide as well. So when we click apply to all, now when I start the slideshow, you hear the drum roll, you have the reveal option. Going to the next slide also is reveal. As you can see, the same sound effect on every slide, probably not a great transition effect. Pressing the escape key to get out, we're going to make a few modifications. The first modification is we are going to take the drum roll out. So I'm going to go back to slide 1, change my sound setting to no sound, and apply that to all. Now, one of the things that we can do here is experiment with some of the transitions. Let's go to slide number 2. I'm going to pick a transition. You can pick a transition of your choice. I'm choosing page curl. And if you see the effect options, you can choose various effects as to which way this page curl is going to take. So you can choose a transition of your choice and then take a look at several of the effect options that are available. You may want to pause the video to experiment with several of these transitions throughout your presentation. Alright, now that you've had a few minutes to experiment with transitions, I wish to offer a challenge that I would like you to see if you can figure out. The goal is I would like to make all the slides have the same transition. Let's pick the airplane transition as the transition that we're going to apply to all the slides. I would, however, wish to make one slide different. I would like slide number 4 to use the curtains transition, but have the sound effect of applause. So repeating, the challenge, create a transition of airplane that will be applied to all slides, with the exception of slide 4. Slide 4, we wish to use the curtain transition, the curtains transition, with a sound effect of applause. Go ahead and pause the video to allow students to work through this challenge. Alright, here's the answer to the challenge. We're going to click on slide 1. We are going to choose the airplane transition. No sound. And we're going to apply that transition to all slides. Now I'm going to go to slide number 4. This is the slide that's going to have a different transition. I'm going to click on curtains, and we're going to add the applause sound effect. Alright, as a wrap-up, one of the last things we wish to do is we want to talk about applying an automatic forwarding to the slides from one slide to the next. Going to slide 1 uses the airplane transition. What I want to do is I want to adjust the settings so that this slide will automatically forward every 3 seconds. So I'm going to set my timer for advanced slide. I've checked the checkbox. I'm going to set this to 3 seconds, and I am going to apply this to all slides. Now, please note that this is not only going to apply the 3 seconds advance, but it's also going to apply that airplane transition to slide 4. To keep the different transition for slide 4, I'm going to go back to slide 4, apply the curtains, change the sound effect to applause. Alright, going back to slide 1, I begin my slideshow. I wait for 3 seconds. It should automatically advance. When we get to slide 4, we should see the different transition. And back to the airplane. The very last step is we do want to add slide numbers to our presentation. Hopefully this is something that you now have an idea of how to do. We go to Insert, Slide Number. We turn on the slide number setting. I do want to apply this to all slides so that all slides will have my slide number. This does conclude this particular activity. Go ahead and save this file. If you haven't done so, please save this to the folder that has today's date on it so that you can upload this to Schoology. In this lesson, we learned how to add slide transitions. We added sound to those transitions, applied transition settings to all slides, for example, advancing automatically. We then experimented with some of the transition effects that were available, and then we wrapped up with a familiar topic of adding slide numbers.